After my wife came home from her latest business trip, I found a white stain on the hem of her blouse. It wasn't mine. I wish it had been. That little smear started a chain of events that ripped open my world. Tests, results, and then videos. At first, I wanted to save her life. But after what I saw, I realized she had already buried herself. You'll want to stay until the end, because trust me, what I found in those videos changed everything. The trip was supposed to be routine. Just another 2-day conference at some mid-range hotel, probably with bad coffee and those lanyards people toss in the trash after checking out. She even joked about it, said she was rooming alone, planned to catch up on sleep between panels. I believed her. Like a fool. She got back Sunday night. Exhausted, she said, threw her suitcase down and went straight to shower. I offered to do her laundry. She barely looked up, just mumbled sure through the running water. I started unloading her bag, just trying to be helpful. And there it was. A white, crusted stain on the front of her blouse, just under the collar. Not lotion, not toothpaste. I'd seen enough of both to know the difference. At first, I froze. Just stared at it. My stomach turned in that slow, nauseating way that comes before bad news. I wanted to be wrong. God, I wanted to be wrong. Maybe she spilled a little hotel shampoo. Or, I don't know, a protein shake? That was the first lie I told myself. But I couldn't let it go. The next morning, while she was at work, I took the shirt to a private lab that did forensic testing. Told them I suspected it was a bodily fluid, left it at that. Paid extra for rush results. 3 days later, I got the call. Sir, we found traces of seminal fluid. Human. The text said, voice clinical cold. We also detected signs of an STD, trichomoniasis. Highly contagious. I didn't even know what to say. I just thanked them and hung up. My hands were shaking. I'd been faithful for 13 years. I stayed home when she traveled. Cooked dinner. Cleaned the gutters. Never so much as looked at another woman. And here I was, sitting in my truck, holding a lab report that said my wife had been with another man, and brought home something that could have killed me if it had been worse. I wanted to confront her right then. I wanted to scream. But I didn't. Because part of me still wanted to save her. I thought, maybe she made a mistake. Maybe she got manipulated. If I just told her what I knew, maybe we could get treatment, go to counseling, figure this out. Then I made the mistake of checking her phone. And that's when I found the videos. It started with suspicion, the stain, the test results. But suspicions got nothing on certainty, and certainty came with a file named Tuesday_1013 MOV. I didn't find it on her phone, not directly. She had nothing incriminating in her gallery. Nothing in her messages either. She'd clearly wiped them. But she forgot her old tablet in the glove compartment of her car. That tablet she used to take on business trips before upgrading her phone. I charged it up out of habit, thinking maybe there were receipts or location data. Just something to confirm the who or where. Instead, I found a folder named Work Docs. Innocent enough, until I saw it had been last updated the day she got back from her trip. The tablet was too old to encrypt files. Just basic stuff. Open the folder, click the file, and boom. It opened to a hotel room. Familiar beige wallpaper, floral bedspread, plastic cups on the nightstand. The camera was propped up on a dresser, angled slightly down. I didn't recognize the room, but I recognized the person walking into frame, my wife. She was wearing that same blouse. She smiled at someone off camera. Then he walked in. A man in a white dress shirt and dark slacks. His tie already undone. They kissed. She laughed. I didn't. I watched her strip down like she was in some cheap movie. I should have looked away, turned it off, but I didn't. I watched the whole thing. Because I needed to feel it. The betrayal. The end of everything. And then I watched the second video. And the third. There were 4 in total. Same man. Same room. Different angles. Different acts. Same betrayal. But what hit me the hardest wasn't what they were doing. It was what she said. At the end of one video, lying on the bed, she looked straight into the camera and laughed. He still thinks I'm stuck at the seminar. I told him I was exhausted. God, I could do this every week and he'd never know. And the guy? He laughed too. Let him keep cooking and cleaning. You've got it made. She looked proud of herself. That's what flipped the switch in me. This wasn't some one-time mistake. This wasn't a moment of weakness. It was planned. Regular. And she enjoyed every second of it. Any thoughts I had about saving her, getting her help, working through it, died right there on that hotel bed. She wasn't in danger. She was in control. And she dug her own grave with every smug word out of her mouth. I made a new plan that night, one she wouldn't see coming. After watching those videos, I sat in the dark for a long time. The house was quiet. My wife was asleep down the hall, breathing softly like she didn't just blow up our marriage 3 nights ago in a cheap hotel. It would have been easy to storm into the bedroom and wake her up with a confrontation. Ask her how many times. Ask who he was. Ask if she ever thought about what she was risking. But I didn't. Because if there's one thing I've learned, it's that people like her, liars, cheaters, manipulators, they're never sorry when you catch them. They're sorry when there are consequences. And I wanted her to feel the full weight of those. So I started moving in silence. First thing I did was make a copy of everything. Videos, lab report, test results. I saved them to a private drive and a backup SD card. Then I changed the passwords on my cloud storage. I wasn't going to lose the evidence. Next, I made a doctor's appointment for both of us. I didn't tell her why. Just said, we should both get a full checkup. You've been tired lately. She smiled. You're sweet. That smile almost broke me. Then I called a buddy of mine, Ben. Quiet guy. Works in IT. Owes me a favor from years back when I helped him through a nasty breakup. Think you can pull deleted messages off a wiped phone? I asked him. Give me the phone for a night and some coffee. Should be no problem. I handed it over the next day under the pretense of upgrading it. My wife didn't even flinch. While Ben worked on the phone, I started digging into her travel history. Credit card statements. Hotel stays that didn't match up with her itinerary. Gas station stops that didn't line up with the GPS history she shared with me. I'd ignored all of it before. Trusted her completely. It wasn't just one trip. Wasn't even just one guy. I started seeing patterns. Names. Receipts for bars and restaurants in towns she'd never mentioned. I even found a spa package for 2 in her email. Booked the same weekend, she said she was sick at her mom's. She had an entire second life tucked away between conference calls and bad Wi-Fi. But I didn't let on. At home, I still cooked dinner. Kissed her on the cheek. Folded her laundry. Played the same part she thought I always would. She thought I was clueless. She didn't realize I was loading the chamber. And then the phone came back from Ben. What he found made everything worse, and also, somehow, clearer. Ben dropped off the phone like it was radioactive. Set it on my porch in a brown paper bag with a note. Call me before you open anything. Seriously. So I called. What did you find? I asked, already bracing myself. Dude, he said, voice low. This wasn't just some fling. She's been juggling 3 guys. And it looks like they know about each other. 3. I didn't say anything at first. My hands were sweating. My mouth tasted like metal. She had a group chat with 2 of them. Team building, they called it. She also had a private chat with each. Shared videos, selfies, even schedules. Like they were trading off weekends. Anything about me? I asked. Oh yeah, he said. They think you're a joke. She called you the house mouse. Said you make a great maid. One of the guys said you should write a cookbook. That one stung more than I expected. She also mentioned your STD test. That got my attention. She wrote, he's making us both get tested. LOL. Like I don't already know I'm clean. Can't wait for the look on his face if he gets something. Ben paused. You want me to keep going? I didn't answer. I didn't need to. That line played on repeat in my head for hours. Can't wait for the look on his face. That's when I knew. I couldn't just walk away quietly. Not after this. Not when she was mocking me to the same men she was sneaking into hotel rooms with. Not when she laughed about my health like it was a punchline. That night, she came home late. Claimed she stayed late at work for a team debrief. I almost laughed. I poured her a glass of wine. Sat with her on the couch. You're working too hard, I said gently. We should go away. Somewhere quiet. She lit up. Like a cabin? Exactly. She leaned her head on my shoulder. You're the best. I smiled. She had no idea what I was planning, what I'd set in motion, and that the next test I scheduled wasn't just for her blood work, but for truth. I was ready. I had the tests, the videos, the messages, everything I needed to confront her and walk away with my dignity intact. I even had a little folder made up, plain manila, labeled for when you're ready to tell the truth. Thought I'd toss it on the kitchen table while she sipped her wine and smiled like nothing was wrong. Let her watch her own downfall unfold in real time. But before I could pull the trigger, fate stepped in. And it wore heels. It happened on a Thursday. I was out in the garage when I saw a dark blue car pull into the driveway. A woman stepped out, late 30s, sharp features, a look that said she didn't waste time. She didn't knock, just marched up and rang the bell. My wife answered, and within 2 minutes, they were screaming. I stayed put at first, just listened. I couldn't hear much, only the rising pitch of my wife's voice, followed by something that sounded like a slap. Not a hit, more like a reality check. I walked in just in time to catch the visitor's last line. You knew he was married. You knew I was pregnant. And you still climbed into bed with him. Silence. My wife looked like she'd seen a ghost. Don't worry. The woman continued, turning to me. I already told him I'm filing. You can keep the leftover garbage. Then she handed me an envelope and walked out. My wife just stood there stunned. She didn't even follow her out. I opened the envelope. Inside was a printout of a group message, the same one Ben had pulled, between my wife and the man's name I hadn't known until now. David, her co-worker. Married. Expecting a kid. The printout showed her telling him she didn't care about his wife, and that a baby isn't a reason to stay loyal. There were photos, screenshots, enough to nuke a marriage and a career. My wife sat down at the kitchen table, finally breaking the silence. She wasn't supposed to find out. That's all she said. Not I'm sorry. Not let me explain. Just that. That told me everything. So I handed her the folder I'd made. Don't bother opening it now. Wait until you're alone. Then I left the house. Drove until the sun set. I didn't need to yell. I didn't need to cry. She was already drowning. I just let the weight of her choices finish the job. She didn't call that night. Didn't text. Didn't show up at the door with tears or excuses or half-baked apologies. I guess when someone else beats you to the confession, there's not much left to salvage. I stayed with a friend for a couple days. Ben, actually. The guy who pulled the data off her phone. He had a spare room and an understanding wife. Someone who didn't ask questions when I showed up with a duffel bag and a hollow look in my eyes. The next morning, I checked our shared bank account. She tried to drain it, emptied most of her portion, and moved a chunk into a new savings account I didn't recognize. But I was a step ahead. The day after the lab test came back, I'd already created a separate account and moved my direct deposit. I hadn't touched her money. That wasn't the point. But I wasn't going to let her run off with mine. I called the bank, flagged the transaction, and froze the account. A quiet, simple move. That same day, I called my lawyer. It wasn't the first time I'd thought about divorce, but it was the first time I said it out loud without a trace of doubt. She's cheated, lied, brought STDs into the marriage, I told him. I have proof. I want to end this on my terms. He asked for everything. I gave him the folder. The next week was a blur. Legal paperwork. Copies of messages. Drafting the letter that would go with the formal divorce notice. Ben helped print everything. My lawyer helped write the affidavit. I didn't need drama. I needed clarity. Then came the best part, serving her. She was at work. In a staff meeting. My lawyer arranged a professional process server to walk in, drop the envelope on the table, and leave without a word. 2 hours later, she texted me. You humiliated me. I didn't reply. She followed with another. We need to talk. You can't just disappear. But I could. And I did. What followed was the unraveling. Friends started calling me, mutual ones. Apparently, she'd gone into damage control mode, spinning stories about misunderstandings, emotional distance, how we were struggling for a while. I let them talk. Let her squirm. Because the truth was already moving faster than her lies. The woman from the driveway, David's wife, posted the screenshots online. Not to go viral, just to expose him to family and friends. But that was enough. Within 48 hours, it got back to my wife's company. HR opened an investigation. Her reputation? Torn to pieces. She was suddenly on leave. Personal reasons. I guess it's hard to run team meetings when your private messages are making the rounds in group chats. Me? I started breathing again. Not dancing. Not celebrating. Just breathing. The house felt quieter. The food tasted different. Like grief and relief had shaken hands and agreed to call it a draw. I didn't plan to tell her face to face. I figured she'd get the message eventually, from the test clinic, from her inbox, maybe even from the guy she gave it to before me. But there was something about this part one couldn't leave unsaid. Not because I wanted revenge, those wheels were already turning, but because I wanted to watch her realize it. Watch her understand just how reckless she'd been. She texted again a few days after being served. This time, it wasn't about us. We need to talk about the tests. I agreed to meet. Neutral ground. A park bench by the river where couples used to bring their kids and feed the ducks. Poetic, in a twisted way. When I got there, she was already sitting. Same sunglasses. Same fake calm. She didn't even stand up. I didn't know, she said before I sat down. Didn't know what? I asked, though I already did. The test. The STD. I didn't feel anything. I nodded. Yeah, that's the dangerous part. Trichomoniasis doesn't always show symptoms, but it spreads fast. She didn't say anything. So just to be clear, I added, you slept with multiple men, unprotected, and brought it back into our marriage. I didn't know, she snapped louder this time. I thought we were fine. No, I said. You hope we were fine. You gambled and lost. She looked down. Her hands were shaking. Was it worth it? I asked quietly. I didn't mean for it to get this far, but you meant for it to happen. That landed. She wiped a tear that rolled down under her glasses. You're not sick, are you? I mean, you tested clear. I shrugged. Does it matter? Yes, it matters. You didn't ask that the night you brought it home. You didn't care then. We sat there in silence. Ducks quacked in the distance. A kid giggled on a scooter. I got treatment, she mumbled. I went as soon as I got the call. Good, I said. Because I'm not paying for your hospital visits when this thing catches up to you in round 2. Her eyes shot up. What's that supposed to mean? You didn't get this from one guy, I said, standing up. You played Russian roulette. And the chamber's still spinning. I walked away before she could respond. That night, I slept better than I had in weeks. Not because I was healed, but because I knew she wasn't. The first morning in the house after she moved out felt strange. Too quiet, too still, but not heavy. More like that first cold breath you take when you step outside after a storm. Sharp, but clean. I'd packed up what little she hadn't grabbed in a rush. Left her boxes in the garage. I didn't throw anything out. That wasn't for me to do. She'd burned this place down emotionally. I wasn't going to stoop to flinging her shoes into the street. The kitchen looked different without her coffee mug on the counter. The bedroom, without her perfume. It should have felt lonely, but it didn't. I'd gotten used to being alone, even when she was still here. I spent that week sorting out the rest. Lawyer meetings, financial disclosures, changing passwords, canceling accounts she used to handle, Netflix, joint insurance, the gym membership she hadn't used in 6 months. I cleaned out the guest room, moved into it officially. The master bedroom felt like a crime scene. One afternoon, I was out mowing the lawn when my phone buzzed. An unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something made me swipe. Hi, is this Jack? Yes. This is Rebecca, David's wife. I didn't answer, just waited. I just wanted to say thank you. For not coming after me. For not making it worse. I nodded slowly, even though she couldn't see it. She continued. I found out about the others. Your wife wasn't the only one. He had 3 going at the same time. I only found out because of what you gave me. Sorry, I said genuinely. You didn't deserve that. Neither did you, she replied. Anyway, I'm filing. My lawyer says the videos sealed it. I just wanted you to know. Thanks, I said, and meant it. There was a pause. You doing okay? I almost laughed. The honesty of that question hit harder than I expected. Better than I should be, I replied. Worse than I'll admit. Somewhere in between. I get that. We didn't say much after that. But before hanging up, she added, if you ever want to talk to someone who knows what it's like, just to talk, you have my number now. I didn't promise anything, but I saved the number. Not because I needed a lifeline, but because someone out there understood. And that mattered more than I thought it would. A few weeks passed. Enough time for the dust to settle, at least on the surface. People stopped texting, just checking in. The lawyer finalized the filing. Papers were moving through the system like a slow, determined current. Nothing dramatic, just the steady drip of consequences catching up. I'd started sleeping through the night again. Got back to working out. Even went fishing with a buddy I hadn't seen in years. My life didn't feel full yet, but it didn't feel empty either. Just mine. Then one morning, I opened the mailbox and found a thick envelope. No return address. Just my name written in her handwriting. Inside was a letter. Not an apology, exactly. Not the kind you hope for. Just her trying to explain what she thought she was doing, and why it all got away from her. At first, it was about attention. I felt like you didn't see me anymore. Like we were just roommates sharing chores and bills. That one made me laugh. I didn't plan for any of it to happen. But once it started, it was like I couldn't stop. Every lie felt easier than the truth. She went on about the guilt, the fear, the thrill, how she told herself I'd never find out, that I was too comfortable, too trusting, that I'd just keep cleaning up after her, literally and emotionally. And then this line. Part of me thought, even if you found out, you'd still forgive me. That one stopped me cold. She really believed that. She counted on it, like I was some kind of emotional doormat. But the final paragraph hit different. It didn't make me angry. It just made me tired. I know you'll never take me back. I know I burned everything. But I just want you to remember the good years. I want to believe we were happy once, even if I destroyed it. She signed it always M. I folded the letter, set it back in the envelope, and tucked it into a drawer I rarely open. Not to hold on to her, but to remind myself what blind trust can cost. She was right about one thing. We were happy once. But happiness built on lies isn't happiness. It's theater. A set with hollow walls, waiting to collapse. And collapse it did. I used to think betrayal would break me. That finding out the woman I loved had been lying, cheating, risking my health, risking my life, would leave me hollow. Useless. Like someone pulled the plug and left the lights on in an empty house. But here's the twist. It didn't break me. It burned me clean. The divorce went through quietly. No courtroom drama. No screaming matches. Just paperwork, signatures, and an official line drawn between who we were and who we are now. She moved 2 states over. Probably chasing a new job, maybe a fresh start. I didn't ask. I didn't care. The house was mine again. Not just the mortgage, but the silence, the space, the air. And for the first time in years, it felt like home. I didn't date right away. Didn't rush to fill the gap she left. Some people do. I get it. Loneliness is loud. But I needed to be alone, not because I was broken, but because I wasn't going to hand my peace over to just anyone. Funny thing is, the betrayal, her cheating, her lying, that little stain on her blouse, it turned out to be the last favor she ever did for me. It woke me up. I traveled a bit, reconnected with old friends, took a job consulting part-time, no more 9 to 5 grind. I rebuilt myself, piece by piece, without apology or permission. As for Rebecca, David's ex, yeah, we've talked. Had coffee a few times. Nothing romantic. Just 2 people who crawled out of the same wreckage and managed to breathe again. There's an honesty in that kind of company you can't fake. If you're reading this and you've been there, or maybe you're there now, staring down your own version of a stained blouse, or a text thread you can't unsee, here's what I'd tell you. Don't beg for truth. Don't argue with liars. Don't lose yourself trying to save someone who lit the match. Betrayal hurts, but it also reveals. It shows you who they are. And more importantly, it shows you who you are. Me? I'm the guy who walked through the fire, came out scorched but standing, and now sleeps with the peace of someone who no longer lives in a house of lies. And I wouldn't trade that peace for anything. Not even the memory of the good years. Because real peace, that's the kind you earn. And once you have it, you never go back.